Welcome to Sibya I.T with Kuya JT. It is now the 5th of October 2020. This is episode 21. Natunta nga relax mo rin na ang magkaigsunan. Okay. Okay. So, as breaking news na itong last Friday, atong gi-break diri nga si Donald Trump has tested positive for the coronavirus. That's very tragic in a way kay this is the president of the United States, supposedly the leader of the free world. Pamilingin na silang kagalingon. Leader of the free world. Anyway, so ang question na to na nganong nalutsan man si President Donald Trump og COVID virus, diin gikan. So ilang gitrace karon gikan na ni Hope Hicks, usa sa mga assistant ni President Donald Trump nga close in ganyang assistants, kunya part sa to sa team na nag-prepare for the presidential debate with Joe Biden. So, manay dako nga istorya mo kaigsunan. So, pag Friday, si Trump ni-announce Friday sa kadlawon dito 1 a.m. around 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time sa US. That's the New York time, it's Washington time. This Pilipinas just 12 hours later, it's about 1 p.m. In the Philippines. So timing to ng programa ta sa Sibya I.T o sa Ignorantia Legis last Friday. So na-break na to ang news there sa itong program. And the big issue really is, where did he get it? How did he get it? Remember, dili ka kasod sa Malacanang o di ka testingan. Di sa kakasod sa White House o dili ka testingan. So what is the technology there? So Sibya I.T with Kuya JT mag-discuss tas information technology nga gigamit anang testing nila. So sa this moment karon magkaigsunan si Trump nagtuyok-tuyok naman noon around Walter Reed Hospital kaya na yung mga gamay ng supporters niya, nagpakita siya. And this is again violation of the protocols sa CDC. Protocols means you should remain isolated and should be far away from other people. Pero pagsunod niya siyang suburban na SUV, remember nga din apoy Secret Service agents o ang driver within that van na-expose niya. So, was he just showing off? Or was he trying to give hope or optimism sa iyang mga supporters? Mainitabo a few hours ago, magkaigsan. So, sugot pang doktor niya or ang doktor di kakuan kay president na siya. So, ato ng pagatan-aon kay Raog si Trump makaigsunan. Okay, si Trump na kuan ning violate sa protocol sa ilang kagaling gobyerno. Also, please comment sa YouTube nga broadcast na to. If you are now following using Facebook, I suggest that you transfer to YouTube, subscribe to YouTube and post your comment from YouTube para makibaw ko nga subscribe na mo o naminaw mo pinagi sa YouTube. I know member na mo sa Facebook pero kailangan magpa-member WhatsApp mo sa YouTube. Okay. Alright, so unsa may technology gigamit aning White House eh. So that's the big issue there. White House. So, ang gamit nga technology sa White House is rapid test. Rapid test, dili na swab test. So, rapid test, that means to say, this is not a PCR test. This is an antibody test, which is wrong. Diba? The White House relied on a rapid test but used it in a way na dili mao. So that's the technology used by ang device nga gigamit sa White House. Magka-produce og results in less than 15 minutes but was found in a new study to sometimes misinfection. So, a rapid test for antibody, tanaw na ito niya rapid test ba ni siya or swab test, rapid test ba ni siya. Now, ang unit gigamit nila ang ID now, gigamit ni sa Abbott Laboratories. Ito ang picture na Abbott Laboratories. Kadakag size sa ka oven toaster, bread toaster. Okay, mo na gigamit sa kuan. Let's see if you can see it. Chrome. Mga kog sa ikan sa Abbott Laboratories, makita na ninyo. Window projector. Yes. And then here. Okay. So, manigi panghambog sa Abbott, reducing risk by diagnosing with reliable point of care testing. Matod pa, ang ID now delivers results in minutes when they're needed to help diagnose COVID-19. So, ilan yung press release sa May 27, 2020. May 27, 2020. It was published originally on May 19, 2020. It was updated in reference to announcements, entering clinical data. Actually, updated, mana ni siya? Interim clinical data on ID now rapid test. This is a rapid test. Klaro ba ninyo? Siya. That's already 350%. Abbott releases interim clinical data on ID now COVID-19 rapid test showing strong agreement to lab-based molecular PCR tests. Ang urgent care clinic nagpakita nga ang ID now test performance abot ang ngan sa ilang equipment nilang ID now. Ang test performance is greater than or equal to 94.7% positive agreement with respect to sensitivity and greater than equal or greater than 98.6% negative agreement as to specificity compared to the lab-based PCR tests. Ang Everett Clinic study nagpakita og 91.3% positive agreement and 100% negative agreement. Ongoing study of hospitalized and nursing home patients tested with late symptom onset shows equal or greater than 83.3% positive agreement and greater than 96.5% negative agreement. Ang Abbott's studies nagsuggest nga ang ilang equipment nga ID Now performs best in patients tested earlier post symptom onset. So kanang magawas na symptoms, it performs best. Uy, niyagwa pa di kay symptoms. ID Now delivers results in minutes rather than days and is helping reduce the spread of infection by detecting more positive patients faster than would otherwise be the case. So, data ni sa data from this as well as two other Abbott sponsored studies nagpakita the Everett Clinic in Washington, an ongoing study of hospitalized and nursing home patients, nagsuggest ng ID Now performs best kuno sa mga patients tested earlier post symptoms onset. So symptoms ka testingan ka, mas accurate siya. In these studies, ang ID Now was used as intended with variations in patient populations based on the number of days a patient was tested and after first experiencing symptoms. Kunya, wa pa kay symptoms, may problema diya. We are pleased that ID Now is delivering on what it was designed to do, quickly detect the virus in people who need to know if they are infected. Matupad ni Philip Ginsberg, Senior Medical Director, Infectious Diseases sa Rapid Diagnostics, Abbott. This is great news for people who are experiencing symptoms and want to take action before they infect others, reducing the spread of infection in society. These new interim results, matod pa niya, reflect what you're hearing from hundreds of our customers, which is that they're seeing results with positive rates from ID Now than at or above their local COVID-19 infection rates. This tells us that ID Now is performing comparable to molecular laboratory tests in detecting virus. In 256 subjects, 56 naman na enrolled to date, ang ID Now has identified 29 out of 29 positive samples. That means 100% agreement, and 226 out of 227 negative samples, 99.6% negative agreement when compared to a commonly used laboratory molecular PCR assay, the Roche Cubas SARS-CoV-2 assay. In parallel, ang ID Now nakademonstrate siya 94.7% positive agreement o 98.6% negative agreement compared to the CDC 2019 novel coronavirus real-time reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction diagnostic panel. In comparison, Roche has demonstrated 95.0% positive agreement and 98.7% negative agreement when compared to the CDC as. Ang question na niron, ay lang gidudahan nga si Hope Hicks maoy naka babay niya. Hope Hicks maoy nakakuan ni Trump, nakatakon ni Trump. Ang question, kano sa man natakdan si Trump? There's that question there sa technology. Di ba? Kano sa man natakdan si Trump? Okay. Di ba? Kano sa natakdan si Trump? Natakdan ba siya sa Huwebes? Kung nga nag-symptom siya sa Huwebes sa gabi, hindi na pwede. So, natakdan ni si Trump, siguro, Lunes pa. Huwebes man dito sa US. So, Lunes pa nila dito. Lunes, Martes, Merkulis, Huwebes. Lunes pa. So, kung Lunes siya natakdan, kinsa tayo yung kakontract sa Lunes? Contact ni Trump. May mga advisors, including the close-in security. Presidential security nila. Kung Lunes pa, Martes, Merkulis, Huwebes. Pwede Lunes, pwede Martes. Sugod si Trump. Kanya si Hope Hicks, wala ito gitest silang tanan. Wala ito gitest silang tanan o gitest silang abot ID90 sa maning abot. Makadetect ko na siya sa virus. Virus itself, adili antibody niya. Rapid virus test. So, na sila Everett study, na sila nursing home study, na sila urgent care clinic society study. Now, remember, even the PCR test, the gold standard, can have false negatives when viral load levels are ramping down or near the end of the infection cycle, when viral load winds down and patients may no longer be infectious. So, ang ID Now point-of-care molecular platform was first introduced in 2014. One siya leading molecular point-of-care platform for influenza, strep A, and RSV testing in the US. It is a rapid, instrument-based isothermal system for the qualitative detection of the infectious diseases. Its unique isothermal nucleic acid amplification technology provides molecular results in just minutes, allowing clinicians to make evidence-based clinical decisions during a patient visit. So, gitestingan ba lagi ito silang tanan? Gitestingan ba ito si Hope Hicks? Ganun na kalusot mo si Hope Hicks? Yeah, mga kuan katong i-announce ni Trump ang iyang appointment of Amy, kalimutan sa apelyido ng Amy, Judge Amy, na mahimo siyang new Justice of Supreme Court at just 48 years old. Probably the youngest Supreme Court Justice in the United States, babae pa yun. During that event, wala sila mag-mask. And there were already, I think, 8 people in that event na positive na karon. Si Kelly Conway, si Senator Mike Lee, of course, si Trump o si Melania o si New York, Jersey governor, ex-governor sa New York naman, New Jersey, si Christie. So, si Mayor Christie, former Mayor Christie, na positive sa, in fact, hospitalized karon na si Christie. So, ang abot okay, atong i-share ninyo ang video sa abot. Sa abot, yung video sa ano paggamit, batas technology ani. Yes. Okay, data. Balita diri. Siyang i-play ninyo. Let's see. Okay, and where's the sound?
Direct nasal, throat, or nasopharyngeal swabs should be tested as soon as possible after collection. If immediate testing is not possible, the direct Abbott's ID Now is a powerful point-of-care molecular instrument that is ideally suited for use on the front lines, near where the patient shows up for care. Because some of our customers are new and may be using ID Now for the first time, we want them to know that ID Now is safe when following the proper sample handling and processing techniques. And for our customers who have been using ID Now for years for flu, strep, and RSV testing, this video could help to serve as a helpful refresher. In many cases, a healthcare professional will enter an examination room and perform the ID Now sampling procedure, either a nasal swab, a nasopharyngeal swab, or a throat swab. The healthcare professional should take special care to use sterile technique, which is always critical when collecting and handling samples. If the ID Now instrument isn't in close proximity to where the patient's sample was collected, then the healthcare professional can take the sample and return the swab to its package for transport. When returning the swab to its packaging, the healthcare professional should make sure that the swab's head comes into contact only with the lower portion of the packaging. This means avoiding touching the outside of the wrapper with the swab. The swab can also be placed into a conical tube for storage and transport. Direct nasal, throat, or nasopharyngeal swabs should be tested as soon as possible after collection. If immediate testing is not possible, the direct swab specimen can be held in its original package at room temperature between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius or 59 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 2 hours prior to testing. If a direct swab specimen will be held longer than 2 hours, it must be refrigerated at between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius or 35 to 46 degrees Fahrenheit and tested within 24 hours from the time of sample collection. The swab should never be stored in viral transport media or any other solution that dilutes the sample. The specimen is then transported to the ID Now instrument. First, the operator puts on a clean pair of gloves. The operator then selects Run Test, then selects the required test. When the prompt appears, the operator enters the patient ID. When prompted, the operator opens the instrument lid and tears open pouch number 1. which contains the orange test base. You'll notice that the orange test base has a QR code on the back. The orange test base is placed into the ID Now instrument. At that point, the instrument will illuminate in order to scan the QR code. This confirms that the correct cartridge is being placed into the instrument. If the wrong cartridge is inserted, for example, a flu cartridge instead of a COVID-19 cartridge, the test cannot be run. This protects against operator error and guarantees that the right test is being performed every time. The operator then opens pouch number 2, which contains 2 components, a blue sample receiver and a white sample transfer cartridge. The blue sample receiver is placed in the ID Now instrument. After a brief warm-up, the foil seal is removed from the blue sample receiver. The swab that was collected from the patient is placed into the blue sample receiver containing liquid chemicals, is mixed for 10 seconds, and then is discarded into a biohazard container. When the operator is mixing the swab into the liquid solution, the virus does not survive. That's because the solution in the sample receiver is acidic with a pH of 2.0, includes a detergent, and the sample receiver is heated. This combination of chemicals and heat inactivates the virus. As an additional safety precaution, Abbott has engineered the sample receiver to be only 1/4 full of liquid. This eliminates the risk of splashing the liquid solution when mixing the swab, when used according to the instructions. To ensure operator safety, Abbott has performed testing and shown that the instrument can be used for an 8-hour shift without contaminating the instrument, the operator, or the workspace around the ID Now instrument. This means that when sterile technique is used, operators can use ID Now safely and confidently. Even so, a test operator can still always clean the instrument and the area around it as often as they feel comfortable, or in line with guidance by the healthcare provider. The operator then uses 2 hands to press the white sample transfer cartridge into the blue sample receiver. The orange indicator on the transfer cartridge will rise. The white transfer cartridge is then removed from the blue sample receiver and attached to the orange test base. A series of clicks will be heard, and the orange indicator descends back to its starting position. Once the ID Now lid is closed, the test automatically starts to run. As a best practice, remove gloves after handling samples. In a matter of minutes, a sample result is received. The operator then puts a new set of gloves on.
Kay gloves niya.
After the test process is complete, the lid is opened. The operator starts the disposal process by attaching the white transfer cartridge and orange test base to the blue sample receiver. The operator then closes the ID Now lid and discards the test components and gloves into the biohazard container. The operator should hold the receiver in one gloved hand and remove the glove so that it envelops the test components in the used glove. The operator can clean the ID Now instrument and surrounding area using 70% ethanol or isopropanol as available in commercial wipes or on a damp lint-free cloth, or use 10% bleach on a damp lint-free cloth. As the fastest molecular point-of-care rapid test available today, ID Now is delivering reliable results where the patient shows up for care and is helping to reduce the risk of infection in society by detecting more positive results than would otherwise be found. For more information, you can visit our websites or contact your Abbott account representative.
Okay, mao kana makaigsunan ang kuan. Mao kato ang video gikan sa Abbott Laboratories regarding sa Abbott Laboratories regarding sa ilang ID Now man gigamit sa White House. So is it a rapid test for antibody or rapid test for the virus? Mato pala. Is a rapid test for the virus. O din na sila malutsan na. Anong nalutsan mo sila? Anong na fail man sila sa White House? May mga technology nga. Itong electronic naman niya ang technology. So, ang Abbott virus test used sa White House faces accuracy concern that was 4 months ago. Na-resolve na kuno na nga issue. Yeah, so 150 million new Abbott COVID-19 tests ang pa-distribute ni Trump just 6 days ago. So, yun sa Abbott nga, di man ni kuan mo, di man ni siya kuan ka highly accurate man ni. Kanang 100 million tests or pila ka million ang ipagawa ni ipa-distribute ni Trump ang ito na marag test strips 150 million. Si Hope Hicks man siya White House Communications Director. It was, he left the White House 2 years ago, yan ibalik na sad. So, ang problema ni ron, giunsa man ni Hope Hicks pag spread ba, din niya kakuha. So, I'm sure nakuha na niya siya mga counterparts, siya mga kamit sa campaign, for example, niya si Hope, may nakadaan na ito ni Trump. At Trump, kung si Trump lagi, nag-show symptoms sa Huwebes, di Lunes pa, or Martes pa, natakdan na si Trump. Kaya ang symptoms magawas man 4 to 5 days later. So, during that time, Martes o Lunes, si Trump, was Trump already infectious? Diba? Infectious na ba si Trump? So, manay, kuwan din na ron. Niya, kinsay lain nga nga takdan, maabot na hilag. Murag, sana kadusina kapin, ang nakita nila nga positive, ano? Positive. Matud pa ni Trump, murag ni-imply siya na si Hope Hicks might have caught COVID-19 from the military or the police. Manay sulti ni Trump. Pero si Trump dahil at this time, nastakdan na po siya. Katong interview ni siya sa Fox News. So, kung si Hicks na reported positive sa Thursday, niya si Trump, Thursday hapon, na test positive na siya, o niya nag-symptoms na siya. So, in effect, si Trump was already infected with the virus. Dili na sa Huwebes. Pwede sa Lunes, Martes, Miyerkules, Huwebes. Pwede sa Martes, pwede sa Lunes. Infected na siya. So, kinsa itong naka-encounter ni Trump, anong mga panahon na, manay kuyaw. Kay, nahimo na itong gitawag lang, super spreader event. So, ang contact tracing, saan na nila, asan itong contact tracing sa ito eh? Wa naman yung mga contact tracing. Mura mag nanab na taning kuan ba? So, ang problema ni ron, tanang exposure ni Donald Trump kinsa. Daghan ganaw eh. Nya, daghan si mo lagi si Governor Christie, ex-Governor Christie sa New Jersey, napil sa siya. Kuya. Nya, wala ba yung nag-contact tracing? Ang CDC, yung CDC nga, ang White House nag-contact tracing. Taga White House, yung CDC nag-contact tracing. Totoo naman sila, murag yun nag-contact trace, ano nila. Murag yun. Way klaro. Okay, so far, na mga legislators nga dito sa debate, wa man sila pakontak ka. Ang expose niya, ang na-positive na so far, si President Trump, Melania Trump, Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, Senator Tom Tillis, Senator Ron Johnson, si Hope Hicks, si Kellyanne Conway, former advisor sa President, si Chris Christie, advisor to President, former New Jersey Governor, Bill Stepien, Trump campaign advisor, Ronna McDaniel, chairwoman sa Republican National Committee, John Jenkins, president sa University of Notre Dame, o si Nick Luna, nga aide ni Trump, nga close friend sila. Si Nick Luna, mo gani siya body ni Trump, mo gani siya body man Trump, itig alsas mga bag anin ni Trump. Nick Luna, o si Hope Hicks, sila may close kayo. Niya si Trump, dito ni siya sa Harrisburg, may rally, balik sa Washington DC, dito siya sa Cleveland man itong debate, balik sa Washington DC, Tuesday na siya. Pag Wednesday, lingadto siya sa rally in Duluth sa Minnesota, Minneapolis, niya sa balik sa siya, travels with Hope Hicks, balik dito sa Washington. Pag Thursday, dito siya sa Bedminster, New Jersey, sa siya golf course nila na kuhan sa kanang Thursday na. Exposed siya na. Matod pa sa mga doctors, it takes roughly 5 to 7 days for the coronavirus infection to trigger a positive test result. If Biden contracted the virus during Tuesday night's debate, for example, he might not receive a positive result until Sunday or Monday kung sa debate pa. Indeed, ang full strength sa White House outbreak, including pila ka tao ang na-infected. Lisod na pa ibawa na eh. So pag-trace na kay mga kuwan pa na uban na nga ilang mga symptoms ba. Dito sa gitawag og Rose Garden sa White House Lawns, White House Grounds, gi-announce niya si Judge Amy Barrett, iyang nominee sa Supreme Court to replace RBG Ruth Baden Ginsburg, RBG. Mura po red, blue, green, red, green, blue, LED. More than 100 people were present there. They were mingling, hugging. In fact, si Chris Christie, ipakita nga in close contact, si Mike Lee, na yung mga close contact, kuan gani sila agad, nag-hugging ganing uban. Di lang hugging, pero kanang nagduol gid ba? Kanang hunong-hungay. They sat in tightly packed rows of chairs on the lawn while social distancing in the chair. So, that event, kining announcement sa iyang nomination ni Judge Amy Barrett dito sa Rose Garden, that event is called a super spreader event. Super spreader event na ito na. Ang na-tested negative so far, si Judge Amy Barrett, negative. Attorney General William Barr, negative. Second Lady Karen Pence, negative. Senator Josh Hawley, no test announced yet. Senator Ben Sasse, negative. Senator Kelly Loeffler, negative. Now, problema sa technology na kano sa pa ni sila mo pakita silang symptoms. October 3 man to, October 10, dapat magpakita ang symptoms. Ang uban, no? Isura eh. Now, there's little evidence that the White House has offered contact tracing. Ano problema? Wa ako na ebidensya na. And why contact tracing Trump's COVID exposures is so difficult? Asa naman siya. Daghan kay mo doon niya. Pero testingan lagi ko na sila sa di pa sa White House. Mawat ka mga 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Pero lusot man eh. Si Hope Hicks wala matestingin. Ano point niya? Local officials wala makadungog og tao dapat og tawag gikan sa White House on contact tracing. White House fails to contact trace its own outbreak. Normally, contact tracers try to tally up a person's close contacts starting around 2 days before first nagpakita og symptoms. Og si Delia Pardillo naminaw na to, Rex Warren, Raul Omega, Wilson Herrera. Now, dapat ang contact tracing dapat nagkakuha na ni sila. Nagkagrabe ba? Typically, when a person becomes infected, matun pa nila, contact tracers will call that person and create a list of people would he have interacted with long enough and close enough for the virus to be infected. But because Trump has recently interacted with so many people, including other top government officials, connecting with all of his contacts would be a Herculean task or a difficult task. The normal entities may not be trusted or able to do tracing. I suspect they won't turn it over to the Washington DC department, but maybe the CDC or Secret Service. Pero yeah, remember si Trump di magmask. So that's the problema, this technology niya karon. The infection timeline. If the president is indeed getting tested every single day, which is what we hear, kung tinuod ba na, that means he would have tested negative on Monday before testing positive on Thursday. Trump and Melania were tested for the virus after news na iyang close aide na si Hope Hicks tested for the virus. Hicks had recently traveled with Trump aboard Air Force One to the presidential debates in Cleveland and to a Minnesota rally September 30 or Wednesday. 29, it was Cleveland, Minnesota 30. Trump is experiencing mild symptoms, pero mild symptoms ba nga kaduha naman kuno noon makuan matagay oxygen kay ning low, kaduha na milo ang iyang kuan blood oxygen levels. If you get 12 hours between the time you tested positive on Thursday night and develop symptoms, probably is in day 5 of illness now. Day 5 of illness. That means he would have been infected by the virus on Monday. Other estimates exposure date as sometime between last Saturday and last Monday. On Saturday, September 6th, Trump announced Judge Amy Coney Barrett as Supreme Court nominee at a huge White House event. Katong mga event, gamay ray nagmask ato. But of course, these are average numbers and timelines can also differ. Pero possibly na si Trump natakdan pagsugod makaisunan adtong Sabado sa pag-nominate niya ni Amy Barrett. Yeah, so Monday sad, Trump attended an event sa White House alone. And representative from the company dito sa event sa Rose Garden attended by many officials to announce a distribution of millions of coronavirus tests ironically to the states. That means he could have been infected before the 2020 presidential debate. Unya dito sa debate magkaisunan, even the doctors were turned away. Kani remind ang doctors pag mask mo, pag social distancing mo. Wala. Who has been infected? Manang problema daron. So rada pagkuan Negative results don't necessarily mean a person is not infected. It may just be that the virus hasn't multiplied in the body enough to show up on tests. The Republican National Committee has also tested positive for coronavirus ang chairwoman na si Ronna McDaniels. McDaniels frequently interacts with Trump and other Republican officials. So, bada technology ang abot mo talaga. Generally, maybe that's not the only one, pero mo naging panghambog yun sa White House nga nagigamit ang abot ID Now tests. Okay, salamat yung pag-iuban ka na ko diri sa episode 21 sa Sibya I.T. with AJT na discuss ta sa technology sa White House Abbott Laboratories, Abbott ID Now equipment. May test sa mga visitors nila on sa White House, mga occupants or mga workers, employees nito. Thank you and good afternoon. October 5th, 2020, episode 21, Sibya I.T. with Kuya JT. May audio? Ay naman. May audio. Magsulti ay. Sulti. Asa na to kung na-discuss eh. Okay. Sorry, wala ito yung audio ganina di eh. So, audio since the beginning. Okay. So, since the beginning, what the audio? Patas. Anyway, the laws governing commerce in the Philippines, the Constitution, statutory law, Code of Commerce, other commercial codes and statutes, civil code, and then of course, third group is judicial decisions, fourth group is customary law, and in the absence of all the four above, then we use the common law or the law merchant or lex mercatoria under the Code of Commerce. Article 2, paragraph 1. By the way, magkaigsunan ang atong commercial transactions are enumerated in the Code of Commerce. Code of Commerce is a law that is so old, it doesn't even have a number. Okay, so nag-discuss ta magkaigsunan kaganina sa lex mercatoria, the law merchant, a system of customary law that developed in Europe during the Middle Ages and regulated the dealings of the mariners and merchants in all the commercial countries of the world. Until the 17th century, many of the law merchants' principles came to be incorporated into the common law, which in turn formed the basis of the Uniform Commercial Code in the US, which is also adopted in the Philippines during the American time. Now, the difference between civil code and the Code of Commerce. As to perfection of contracts, the civil code follows the theory of cognition, while the Code of Commerce follows the theory of manifestation. Now, under the civil law, the theory of cognition means that if you have an offerer makes an offer. Now, the offeree, katong gi-offeran niya, will have to accept that offer by letter of telegram, and that acceptance must be known, maabot na sa offerer before the contract is perfected. So, for example, ako ay offerer here in the Philippines, I will send a letter kasi ako na barko mga to. Barko letter maabot og 1 month sa Japan, and my letter offer was accepted by the Japanese buyer, and the buyer wrote a letter of acceptance, yung gipadas barko, ang barko nalunod. So ako des Pilipinas, I did not know whether I did not know about the letter of acceptance, and since I did not know the letter of acceptance, then there was no perfected contract. There's no contract between me here in the Philippines and the buyer in Japan nga palit unta ato. Okay, there's no perfected contract. And the theory of manifestation, on the other hand, sa Code of Commerce, opposite siya. Contract shall be perfected the moment an answer is made, accepting the offer under the Code of Commerce na Article 54. So, under the Code of Commerce, now, conflicting niya ang Civil Code of Commerce. Under the Code of Commerce, magpada kong letter offer sa Japan. Sa Japan, mabalik dire sa Japan. Wa pa gani mabalik sa Japan, ni-accept na ang buyer or offeree, ito mag-offer, then accept pa na, bound na ka sa contract. Perfected na ang contract. Importante mo na gold kay, for example, namiligi ka og gold niya, ang gold misaka ang presyo. Ko din na ko ni baligya sa Japanese kay nisaka ng presyo from 100 pesos na mo ng 200 pesos per ounce, for example. Ingon itong sa una ba? So, ingon itong tayo Japan, nagkasabot na tayo. Ako nang i-accept yung offer ng 100. So, papalit ng 100 kay 200 may market value. Siya yung palit ng 100, baligya 200. So, importante na siya because the price changes. So, kano sa ma-perfected ang contract under the Civil Code of the Philippines, only when the buyer knows, when the offerer, me, the seller, only when I know, when I have knowledge of the acceptance. Kung acceptance na lost in translation, na lost in the sea, lost in the voyage, wako kibaw, then I'm not bound by the offer. Pero under the Code of Commerce, once makatanggap na ka, paano na siya? Once mo offer na, in fact na siya proof, pasiliuhan ba rin, notaryuhan dito niya sa Japan, nga accept siya sa offer, nagipada sa ang offer dito sa barko, nawa ang barko, nalunod ang barko, but ang offer na accepted na, then the buyer, the seller, the offerer, is bound by it already. Bisag wa siya makibaw. It did not come into his knowledge. Now, the E-Commerce Act addressed to the reception and cognition theories depending on the circumstances outlined in Section 22 of RA number 8972. Okay, now, if the obligation does not fix a period under the Civil Code, it can be inferred that the period was intended. The courts may fix the period. Under the Civil Code also, the court shall also fix the duration of the period when it depends upon the will of the debtor. Article 197. So, man siya instances nga the court will fix the period. Kung wala period for the obligation to be performed. On the other hand, as to the designation of periods sa Code of Commerce, obligations which do not have a fixed a period previously fixed by the parties, it's demandable within 10 days, not years, not months, not weeks, 10 days after having been contracted, or if derives on ordinary course of action, it must be performed the next day. So, ang period is next day or 10 days under the Code of Commerce. Kung walay fixing period. As to concept of delay and demand, under the Civil Code, lain niya, Civil Code 1950s, ang Code of Commerce, mga panahon pa sa Amerikano. Okay. Mga 1900s pa, na ang kuan. As to concept of delay and default, general rule, no demand, no delay. General rule, no demand, no delay. no demand or delay. So, general rule na siya. O ako din i-greet si Mr. Ramirez na from TC Martires Cavite o si Mr. Ronald Lim sa LTO na may nato Mr. Ronald Lim. Good afternoon. Yeah. General rule, no demand, no delay. Exceptions. If the law expressly declares. Number 2, when the nature and circumstances of the obligation requires. And number 3, time is of the essence. Number 4, demand will be useless. Number 5, reciprocal obligation. So, these are the exceptions to the general rule that there is no demand, no delay. And now, under the Code of Commerce, so the concept of delay and default. Every debtor will build in default without need of demand if there's a fixed due date in the contract. So, Code of Commerce, no need for demand. In the Civil Code, the general rule, there is a need for demand. If there's no demand, then there's no, the obligor hasn't incurred a delay. Kaya kanang delay penalty magsabot ano. Every debtor will be in default without need of a demand. Mura X-ray if there's a fixed due date sa contract under the Code of Commerce, Article 63, Paragraph 1. Now, if there's no date that was fixed in the contract, demand is necessary if there is delay. If no date was fixed, demand is necessary. But if under the Code of Commerce if there was a fixed date, then there's no need for demand. Now, the prevailing social view seems to be the mixed theory, is that civil law and commercial law supplement one another. Matabang. Kung na nakag-deliver sa barko ron sa mga commercial law na siya or Code of Commerce. The effect of the new Civil Code on the Code of Commerce. Provisions of the Code of Commerce expressly repealed by the new Civil Code. The Code of Commerce provisions on guarantee, sales, and partnership have been expressly repealed by the new Civil Code. Og ang Code of Commerce rules on agency and loan and deposit. They are now governed by the Civil Code. Article 2270, Paragraph 2. Ano yung pang-repeal is expressly repealed by the Civil Code. Provisions of the Code of Commerce is still in force. No. Tungod na Code of Commerce kakaraan, sabay, wasan na siya expressly repeal itself. I mean, tungod siya kakaraan, wala lagi siya number. Why low number ng Code of Commerce. Provisions of the Code of Commerce is still in force are merchants, Book of Merchants, and the general provisions of contracts, Code of Commerce Articles 1 to 63, the Joint Accounts Associations, Code of Commerce Articles 239 to 40, Commercial Barter, Code of Commerce Article 346, the Transfers of Non-Negotiable Credits, Code of Commerce Article 347, 348, Commercial Contracts of Overland Transportation, Code of Commerce Articles 349 up to 379. The Letters of Credit under the Code of Commerce, Articles 567 to 572. The Maritime Commerce or Code of Commerce, Articles 579 to 869, which includes but not limited to charter party, respondential loans, averages, bottom rate, bill of lading, aval, arrival under stress, collision, and number 8, cross checks. Code of Commerce Articles 534, 536, 539, 541, 543. Note, Article 580 of the Code of Commerce is implied repeal, is deemed repealed by Section 17, PD number 1521, or the Ship Mortgage Decree of 1978, insofar as the latter confers on the preferred mortgage lien on the vessel superiority over all other claims. Polian Industrial Limited versus National Development Company in year 2005. By the way, magkaigsunan na, daghan mo ng mga on ba nakibarko dagang barko, di ba? Daghan kay siya mga pang-utang ng barko, utang ng barko sa kuan, utang ng barko sa kanang utang ng barko sa bangko, loan ba na, etc. Pero og na kay ship mortgage, that ship mortgage is superior to all the other claims sa barko. So, commercial statutes and codes currently in force sa Pilipinas. Chattel Mortgage Law, the Corporation Code, and the Revised Corporation Code, effective February 23, 2019. The Warehouse Receipts Law, the Negotiable Instruments Law, the Insurance Code, the Intellectual Property Code, Public Service Law, the Securities Regulation Code, Financial Rehabilitation and Insolvency Act, FREA of 2010, Retail Trade Nationalization Law, General Banking Law, Business Name Law, the New Central Bank Act, the Trust Receipts Law. These are still laws under valid in the Philippines. Okay. Gamay na po na to si Janelle Lingkasca. So, balhin mo sa YouTube para kung sa mo sa YouTube, maka-subscribe po mo dito. Okay. Alright, so what are merchants? Introductory pa rin natin sa commercial law. Merchants, one whose business is buying and selling goods for profit, especially a person or entity that holds itself out as having expertise peculiar to the goods in which it deals and is therefore held by law to a higher standard of expertise than that of a non-merchant. Merchants under the Code of Commerce, persons who have the legal capacity to trade and who customarily devote themselves thereto, and two, commercial or industrial associations which are formed in accordance with the Code of Commerce. Code of Commerce, Article 1. Note, this must be interpreted as to necessarily include other business organizations formed in accordance with other codes and special laws, such as corporations, business partnerships, and trusts. Persons with legal capacity to trade. Article 4 of the Code of Commerce provides that in addition to those who have free disposal of their property, the following persons have the legal capacity to trade. 1. Those who have reached the age of 21, and 2. Those who are not subject to parental authority or marital authority. This is under Article 4 of the Code of Commerce. However, considering that special laws have already superseded and impliedly amended the Philippine state's policy on legal capacity, the following rules should apply. Number 1, persons who are at least 18 years of age have legal capacity to trade insofar as they are deemed to have reached the age of majority and are ipso iure emancipated from reaching the age of majority. So, upon reaching the age of majority, ipso jure or ipso iure. The legal capacity, number 2, the legal capacity of married women is no longer impaired and they are no longer subject to marital authority under the family code and as a matter of constitutional policy. As such, the phrase with the authority of the husband in Article 6 should be deemed repealed. Rule on minors engaging in commerce. General rule, a minor may not engage in commerce. That is the Code of Commerce, Article 4, Paragraph 1. Exceptions. The minor continues the business of his parents or predecessors through a guardian, Code of Commerce, Article 5. And a minor is at least 7 years old. Minor of at least 7 years old may open a bank, savings account, or time deposit account and withdraw the same without the assistance of the parent or guardian, which is authorizing minors to deposit and withdraw from banks, PD number 734. Persons disqualified to become merchants. There are what is called as absolute incapacity versus relative incapacity. Absolute incapacity as to extent extends throughout the Philippines. Relative incapacity extends only to the territory where the officer is exercising its functions. As to effect, persons disqualified to become merchants. The act is rendered null and void as to effect the act of the person, and if it's just a relative incapacity, subjects the violator to disciplinary action or punishment. What are absolute disqualifications to become a merchant? Number 1, person suffering the penalty of civil interdiction. For example, nakasud sa prisuhan, napriso ka by conviction. Persons declared as bankrupt. And 3, persons disqualified by laws or special provisions. Code of Commerce, Article 13. Now, what are relative disqualifications from becoming a merchant? Relative, naka-mention na sa absolute disqualifications, ngayon sa relative disqualifications. Number 1, justices of the Supreme Court, judges and officials of the Department of Public Prosecutors in actual service. Number 2, employees engaged in the collection and administration of public funds of the state appointed by the government, so they cannot go into business. Number 3, those who by virtue of laws or special provisions may not engage in commerce in a determinate territory. Code of Commerce, Article 14. Number 4, stockbrokers of any class. Number 5, members of Congress, Constitution, Article 6, Section 14. Number 6, members of the Constitutional Commission, Constitution, 1987 Constitution, Article 9, Section 2. Number 7, administrative, economic, or military heads of districts, provinces, or post. Number 8, President, Vice President, members of the Cabinet and their deputies or assistants. Article 7, Section 13. Number 9, President, Vice President, members of the Cabinet, Congress, Supreme Court, and the Constitutional Commission, Ombudsman with respect to any loan, guarantee, or other form of financial accommodation for any business purpose by any government-owned or controlled bank to them. Constitution, Article 11, Section 16. Now, who are foreign merchants? Foreigners and companies created under foreign laws may engage in commerce subject to the following rules. Number 1, they are subject to the laws of their country with respect to their legal capacity to contract. Kay sa US, ang age of contracting is 21, then dapat 21. And i-follow na to ang ilang nationality. They are, what's number 1? This foreign merchants. They are subject to the laws of their country with respect to their legal capacity to contract. Number 2, they are subject to the laws of the Philippines with respect to A, the creation of the establishments within the Philippines. Remember, laws of the Philippines. They're subject to the laws of the Philippines with respect to A, creation of establishments within the Philippines, B, their commercial transactions, and C, the jurisdiction of the Philippine courts. So, ang ilang capacity to contract is based on their national law, with their adult, major, or minor pa. But the moment they establish and they do commercial transactions here in the Philippines, then they must be subject to Philippine laws. Commercial registry. 1. A book where entries are made by merchants, including the documents affecting their commercial transactions. Or 2. An office established for the purpose of copying and recording verbatim certain classes of documents of commercial nature. Rules on commercial registries. Individual merchants, the Department of Trade and Industry as to place of registration. Juridical persons, Securities and Exchange Commission, the Civil Code, and then our Corporation Code. Ship owners, maritime industry or marina at the various ports of the Philippines. Ship mortgage degree, register, and marina. As to being optional or mandatory, optional, Code of Commerce registration. Compulsory for corporations, registry, juridical persons, and partnerships with capital of 3,000 or more of money or property. Civil Code, Article 1772. Now, ship owners, compulsory for Philippine vessels with gross tonnage of more than 3 tons. Article 17 Code of Commerce. Issuance of certificate of Philippine registry is compulsory if more than 15 gross tons. RA 1937, Section 806 as amended by PD 761. Ship owners optional if 15 tons gross or less, optional on registration. As to failure, effects of failure to register. Individual merchants cannot process the inscription of a document in the mercantile registry nor take advantage of its effects. Code of Commerce, Article 18. As to juridical persons, a corporation does not create a corporation if legal registered. Corporation Code, Section 19. And partnership does not affect the existence of the juridical personality. Civil Code, Article 1768. So, kung partnership siya, huwag ka ma-register, okay lang. Pero kung corporation, huwag ka ma-register, dili okay. The books of merchants. Under the Code of Commerce, Book of Merchants, under the Code of Commerce, you need to maintain the following books. A. Journal containing day-to-day operations. B. Book of inventories and balances containing a statement of assets, liabilities, and capital. C. Book for letters or telegrams sent out. D. Ledger containing accounts classified as objects or persons transferred from the journal. And E. Other books required by special laws. Code of Commerce, Article 33. Now, under the Corporation Code, kaya itong ganina under the Code of Commerce na to. Under the Corporation Code, the following books are to be maintained. A. Book of all business transactions. B. Book of all minutes of all meetings of shareholders or members. C. Book of minutes of all meetings of directors and trustees. And D. Stock and transfer book, STB, in case of stock corporations. Membership book in case of non-stock corporations. This is Section 74 of the Corporation Code. Now, number 3, under the National Internal Revenue Code, or BIR, National Internal Revenue Code, NIRC, you need A. Bookkeeping records authorized by the Finance Department if merchant, natural, or juridical has gross quarterly sales, earnings, receipts, or output not exceeding 5,000. B. Books must be audited and examined by an independent CPA if the gross quarterly sales, earnings, receipts, or output exceeds 150,000. And journal or ledger if the gross quarterly sales, earnings, receipts, or output exceed 50,000. Otherwise, shall keep records and use simplified act of bookkeeping. So, what are the probative value of merchant books? 1. The books of merchants shall be evidence against the merchants themselves. 2. If the books of two merchants conflict, those kept properly shall prevail. Number 3. If one keeps books the other does not, and cannot explain their absence, the books of the former shall be admitted against the latter. And 4. If both keep their books properly, but the interest conflict, the court shall accept proofs. The Code of Commerce, Article 48. Anyway, muna ito mga general introductory mga kaigsunan sa commerce. We're just discussing the Code of Commerce first. O salamat sa iyong pag-iguban ka na ako dito sa episode 18 sa Ignorantia Legis, October 5, year 2020. Thank you and good afternoon. See you tomorrow.